Hello, church. I would like us to start our time together by practicing a quick exercise. And that is, I want you for the next couple of seconds to think about a rule that when you were little or even now you like to follow. But I also want you to think about a rule that you didn't like to follow as much or it was hard to follow. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 40 tells us, let all things be done decently and in order. Let all things be done decently and in order. Rules, my dear friends, are not just for children. Rules are for grownups as well. Rules are for all of us who want to live wisely. From the very beginning, we know that God established order in creation. God set rules for the sun. The sun rises and sets at a specific time. The seas or the oceans stop at shore right at a specific place where we can now see the sand. God commands and it happens, but everything has rules. And the rules that God gives us are not rules for us to feel confined and restricted, but are rules that help us to make wise choices, be guided, and rules that are put into place to protect us and be safe. As adults, we sometimes think that we don't need to follow the rules, or we're just too busy with our schedules, or we can make our own choices and justify why we're doing things the way we do. But reality is that we can't ignore God's order for us, whether it is our time, relationships, finances, or rest. We need to remember that we need to follow God. We need to follow the order that He has given us. The same way children need structure to grow. We need to listen to God, listen to God's boundaries, and to stay in the truth. As a staff, we are actually reading a book called 10 Rules for Raising Kids in a High-Tech World. And we're reading this book because we think that it's important for us to mentor the next generation about responsibility using technology and building character. And we're going to make that book available in the next few weeks to families at church. But I thought it will be interesting to share with you a little bit of what we are learning. And so the book reminds us that rules are an expression of love. That when we set healthy boundaries for our children using technology, we teach them that freedom is best enjoyed when we have limits. But that lesson applies just as much for parents, and that lesson also applies to us as mentors and adults. So if we tell our children to put down their iPhones or cell phones, but us as adults, we never disconnect ourselves from technology, or we do our own choices and we don't follow rules. So what are we teaching them in reality? Rules remind us that discipline and freedom walk hand in hand. When we follow God's order in how we speak, how we spend our time, how we serve, we find peace. But we also find maturity in our spiritual growth. And we also find freedom to be able to listen to God, freedom that we know that we have limits. And we, as adults, we can actually follow the limits. So we should model that to our kids in our faith, in the way we live out the love for God, and with our time. So today, one takeaway that I want us all to think about is that rules are not just for kids. They are for everyone that wants to have a heart that follows God and wants to listen God's voice. And when we walk in His order, our lives become examples of His love, and our lives become more organized. And that's just reality. So, church, what about if this week we try to think about some rules that God has given us? How are we putting them into practice? And are we modeling these rules to people around us, including our children? If we haven't started, or it's been a while since we have practiced rules, maybe at home and everywhere we go, I just recommend to take some time, pray to God, surrender your time and your life to God, and then ask Him for guidance in how to live a life that pleases Him. Amen.